All right. How's it going, everybody? We are going to talk about how to translate your military experience to tech sales gold. This is service to quota. I'm excited to bring this lesson discussion to you guys. This is a super common obstacle that a lot of veterans face as they're transitioning out of the military. How do I tell people, specifically in this case, tech sales hiring managers, that what I've done in the military is valuable? How do I translate my skills and experiences? So we're going to talk a little bit about that today, and let's dive in. All right, so our agenda is we're going to talk about military to sales skills. We're going to offer some insights, how to think about the job hunt. We're going to then offer some tips, how to stand out in a crowded market. I'm going to close with some truths, some next steps, and then at the very end, I want to give you guys an unfair advantage. Something I want you guys to keep in mind is you have more value than you realize. I remember when I was getting out, it is hard to imagine yourself in this new world because you're so unfamiliar with it. While that's a challenge, I think it's really important to consider all the veterans that have gone before you and understand that hiring managers eventually will see the value you provide, but they won't see it unless you learn how to speak their language in the interview process as you're reaching out to these people. All right. So you have extremely valuable skills and experiences. We're going to talk about some of those, but it's your job to learn how to translate those. It's my job to teach you. It's your job to take it in, learn it, execute. All right. All right, military skill to a sales translation, okay? So military skill, leading in chaos. Many of us have done this. Even if you haven't seen the battlefield, many of you have led in chaotic environments. From a sales perspective, this is orchestrating cross-functional deals, right? There's going to be deals that you're working on where you've got different partners involved. You might have Accenture, you might have IBM, you might have to sell this solution, you might be offering cybersecurity services, all at once, because typically when you're working with customers, you might be solving more than one problem at a time. And so it can get really challenging to organize all the different teams, the solutions, the talk tracks, the problems, everything can get jumbled. But you've done this before, right? So be thinking about the times where you've had to lead in chaos, okay? Next, process under pressure. Consistent sales motion and pipeline discipline. Man, there is pressure from a sales perspective in wanting to hit your quota, right? And one of the ways that sales leadership tracks the propensity or the likelihood that you're going to hit your quota is what's called consistent sales motion, meaning move deals along a sales pipeline, or generating pipeline, which is getting new deals into the pipeline or new opportunities into your CRM, right? So these are pretty structured processes, right? There is plenty of process in sales. So you can lean on the fact that you're familiar with process under pressure, right? Managing SOPs, the things that you did in the military from a process under pressure perspective translate really well, specifically to being able to maintain some of these, not always rigid, but some of them can be rigid processes that sales leadership wants you to follow. Okay. Mission planning to account planning and deal strategy. Another great one. So when you're planning a mission, you are thinking of everything from every perspective. You've got teammates involved, you've got leadership involved, you've got different stakeholders considering the mission from different perspectives. You've got contingencies, you've got COA 1, COA 2, COA 3. It is not any different in account planning and deal strategy. Account planning is nothing more than taking an account. Let's say you want to sell to Acme software, that's an account. And you have different approaches or different solutions you think might be a good fit for them. So you approach them. This is called deal strategy. What are the different things we think we can do for them? What is our propensity to win here? Who are our competitors? What teams do we have to offer? What systems are we going to use to implement? So it's all about figuring out what the challenges are the customer's facing and getting your team around and figuring out, okay, what is it we're going to do? How are we going to approach this? What solutions are we going to offer, right? Mission planning, account planning, and deal strategy. All right, military skill, fast problem solving to adaptive to live customer meeting challenges. Woo. Man, when you're in a customer meeting, you can plan on how you think it should go, it will go or might go. But it is inevitable. You will come across curveballs. There's going to be things that customers throw at you. Why? Because their environment is also very dynamic. The customer also has things going on. Their environment's changing. Decision makers are shifting. Budget cycles are moving. It is hard from a customer perspective to make decisions on purchasing technology. They have to really think through it, and most of the time there's many people involved. And so as you have these conversations, you could say, hey, I really think we should go this direction, and this is why. And they could say, actually, I know we didn't talk about this before, but we're going to go in this direction. Tell us about that. And you're like, oh, well, we didn't talk about that. We didn't prep for that in the prep call. Let's talk through that. Tell me more about why you want to go that direction, right? So you have to be adaptive. You can't say, oh, no, we didn't talk about that. Meeting canceled. Let's prep and then have another meeting. No. We must be adaptive. All right, military skill. Navigating risk, bureaucracy, and politics to multi-threading stakeholders with influence. In the sales world, essentially what you're doing is you're solving some of the biggest problems for some of the biggest organizations out there. What that means is there typically isn't one person that's going to make this decision in a vacuum. There is, now that's not to get confused with, there's typically one person who's responsible for the decision, but that person typically leans on other people in their immediate circle of influence or the people under their charge, or maybe some of their peers, to help them think through, like, what should we be doing? Should we be going with this solution or this technology? Should we be going down this road? If so, how? Are we doing it the right way? And so multi-threading is reaching out to a bunch of different stakeholders and talking to different stakeholders or different people, different influencers, different decision makers at a company or an account, and making sure that everyone's in line. Everyone has a clear understanding of the problem. Everyone understands their role in the solution. Everyone understands, like, the benefits that they're going to receive if we go through the solution. And it's multi-threading. It's getting everyone involved, everyone's perspective, everyone's point of view. Because if you don't do this, you can get towards the end of a deal cycle, and then all of a sudden we've got Jim Bob over in the corner saying, hey, no one ever approached me. This affects my department. No, we're not doing that. And then all of a sudden everyone is like, hey, Jim Bob, we didn't know. Sorry, man. Tell us more about that. That is the salesperson's responsibility, to know that Jim Bob exists and make sure that Jim Bob's included in the decision-making process and that we have a solution for Jim Bob's challenges, right? Jim Bob's a fake name, by the way. Hopefully, maybe it's real. Navigating risk, bureaucracy, and politics, right? So this is important. This is a skill that many of us already have, as the military is just, filled with red tape, right? Lastly, clear comms under fire, to communicating with precision in discovery and demos. Discovery and demos are nothing more than the part of the sales cycle or the deal process where you're really involved with the customer. Imagine things like, you're whiteboarding out problems and solutions. You're having these brainstorming meetings with them. You're really trying to get to the meat and the root of the challenges that they're facing. In order to do that well, you have to know how to communicate well, right? Time is precious. No one has, hours and days on end to just sit around and figure things out. We have to be super sharp. We have to be excellent communicators in the questions we ask and the way we articulate the solutions that we're proposing. All right. So it's really important that you understand communication is a critical skill to being successful here. Fortunately, you've had to be a critical communicator in the military, right? Whether you're literally in a combat zone and you're communicating over radio under fire, or you're just in a high pressure, high stakes environment where these decisions matter. What you communicate matters, right? And so all of these things can be ways that you translate what you've done, your skills, experiences, to sales. Okay? Moving on. All right. Let's talk about some insights. Here we go. Hiring managers aren't risk averse, they're time averse. They don't fear your background, they fear your ramp time. Your job is to convince them you'll learn faster than their safe candidate. What I'm saying here is that it's important that among many of the things you have to communicate, some of the most important things are, I can learn this job, and not only can I learn it, I can learn it very quickly. And so have a plan on how you're going to communicate that. You can say things like, I've already reached out to some people on your team. I understand the challenges. If I can understand the challenges you're facing and I'm not even working there, imagine what I could do when I do work there, right? So you have to think through the hiring manager's thoughts and the things that they're considering, the risks that they're balancing. One of them is essentially like, how long is it going to take for me to teach this person who has no sales skills, right? No experience selling anything. It's your job to help them realize, like, not very long at all, right? Also, the arena helps a great deal with that. Shameless plug. Your no sales experience is actually an asset if you show you've done the homework. Many managers prefer someone coachable with no bad habits. Be that. This is true. There's a lot of people out there, especially as I consider the arena from a recruiting perspective, where we have hiring managers who, look, I need someone green. I need someone who's got grit, who's got tenacity, who's coachable, who's teachable. I want to mold them into the salesperson that I think is best. That exists, right? So do your homework and see for yourself if that's the kind of role that you're going after. And if so, you can play that card, right? But if you're going after a role where the hiring manager is looking for someone with 5 years experience and actually looking for someone with 5 years experience, I would index a little less on having zero traditional sales experience, right? So be wise here as you use these insights. All right. Sales is more structured than you think. There are SOPs, frameworks, metrics. It's not chaos. Veterans tend to thrive in structure and systems. Man, so true. This was actually one thing that really helped me in the sales world that I wasn't anticipating. No one really taught me this or told me this when I was getting into sales, but I realized very shortly into my first few months in the sales world is that there is a lot of structure. There are frameworks, there's metrics, there's SOPs, just like there were in the military for me, right? There's a procedure for everything, if you will. A lot of sales teams, it's no different. This is how we cold call. This is how we do business development. This is how we run a meeting. This is how we do reach out, right? And as you get good, you're going to start creating your own SOPs, your own frameworks. You're going to start tracking your own metrics on yourself. The best salespeople have a book or a framework or books or frameworks for themselves, right? That they follow, that work best for them, okay? Sales is nothing more than doing a lot of the same things, very simple, ordinary in themselves, over and over and over and over again, right? Your advantage isn't that you're a veteran, it's that you're trained to master new skills quickly. Emphasize your capacity to learn, practice, and perform under pressure, right? We've kind of talked about this a little bit with one, but this is important because what I want you to emphasize is your capacity to learn, to practice, and perform under pressure, okay? These are some of the things that people in the civilian world and specifically in the tech sales world, there's pressure. There's quotas to attain. There's meetings to be had. There's customers to go gain. So that can introduce some pressure. But you're no stranger to that. In fact, these are typically environments you thrive in. So be sure to emphasize that throughout the interview process. This is a good one. Being too humble reads as low conviction. Civilians don't know how to read your resume. If you don't tell them how good you are, they assume you're average. Frame your impact boldly and clearly. This is another one that really sneaks up on people because you just have to learn how to sell yourself well. You just have to learn how to be a little braggadocious. It's going to feel very braggadocious to most people, to most veterans, because we don't typically like talking about ourselves. But this is an environment where you have to be honest. I don't call it being a bragging or overselling. I call it be truthful. Tell the truth. What did you do? Who did you lead? What were the outcomes? What was the environment? What was the context? How much pressure were you under? Right? Just be honest. Just tell the truth about some of the experiences you had and then translate them into how that's going to be effective for them and their team. Right? Finally, the battlefield isn't your brand. Discipline and excellence are. Hiring managers respect veterans for grit and work ethic, not necessarily combat stories. So focus on the value they seek, not your Purple Heart. Now, this might be a little bit of a contrarian take, right? This might be a bit of a hot take, but A lot of veterans have done some incredible things. You've earned some incredible awards, and that's great. But that's not necessarily what these hiring managers are looking for. What they're looking for is, again, you to be very clear and concise in your language and communicate to them the value you can provide. Okay? So it's okay to mention the awards you've received, but if you do, you have to be able to quickly translate that to, I received this award, and because of the things that I did to receive this award, that's what's going to prepare me to be excellent in this role with you, blah, 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 blah. Okay? So it's always translating the value. What's in it for them? Why do they care? Okay? All right, moving on to some tips. Tips to stand out. Interview your future teammates before you apply. Reach out to SDRs or AEs at the company, learn what the job's really like, and name drop those combos when talking to the hiring manager. 1000%. This is basic stuff that we teach in the Arena University, so many of you might be hearing this for the umpteenth time, but it bears worth repeating. Please be interviewing your future teammates before you apply. This is also basic stuff for when you're actually in a sales role. You need to reach out to influencers and the people that are associated with decision makers and make sure that you're including them as you go begin to think about submitting proposals and solutions to problems for your customers. That's all you're doing here. You're including their perspective of your future peers, their insights on what the job really entails, what the territory is like, what the job or what the boss is like. These are all things, these are all critical data points that are going to help you present yourself well to the hiring manager. This is good. Create a short Loom video summarizing what you learned and why you're a fit. 60 to 90 seconds, name the team, mention what you heard from the reps, make it tailored, send it to the hiring manager on LinkedIn or email. Again, these are tips to stand out. So this is a creative way. Take what you learned from your interviews with future peers. You can either cold call the manager, which is one thing I recommend to a lot of people. But if for whatever reason you can't get the manager's number, create a short Loom video. And if you guys don't know what Loom is, go to loom.com. It's a way to create really nice, effective videos, and you can send them to people. And they're the kind of videos where if you send them the link, like anyone can open it. Like it's very mobile friendly and all those types of things. And this makes you stand out because they can see your face. It shows you're bold. It shows you've done your homework. You can offer, showing how you're a clear communicator. These are some of the things that are going to help you stand out, as opposed to smashing the apply button on the front careers page, right? Post on LinkedIn about your journey and tag the company. Man, hiring teams check your profile, show you're serious by publicly sharing what you're learning about tech sales and why this team stands out. Talk to 4 or 5 people on a sales team and then go post about it and tag those people that you talk to. I talked to Jane. She was great. She mentioned these challenges. I talked to Jim. He mentioned that they're having this much success. I talked to Jerry. He mentioned that they've worked on this project, blah, blah, blah. Be careful not to overshare because it's public, but be sure to include people's names that you've talked to, tag the company, and then you can even tag the hiring manager. All of these people mention the hiring manager and how great a leader this person is. Again, these are creative ways to stand out in a very crowded market, right? We want to be memorable in a good way. Because if you're not memorable, by definition, you're forgettable. Build a proof of work portfolio. This could include sample cold emails, mock call recordings, a territory plan, or a mini go-to-market strategy you use in this role. This is gold. If for whatever reason there's an objection, you don't have experience, I don't know that you have the work ethic, blah, 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 be building a proof of work portfolio, proof of the work you've done that you've prepped for this specific role. Write out some sample cold emails you would write to their actual prospects, right? So if you are applying for a role at Acme Software and you talk to Jim, another AE at Acme Software, say, hey, Jim, who are some of the companies that you guys serve? Oh, well, we serve this company, that company, blah, blah, blah. Great. Go create some sample cold emails that you would send to some of the decision makers at those companies. Create a mock call recording of you doing a cold call to one of their prospects. Create a territory plan. So these are all things you can do to, again, show that you're doing your research, you're a little bit a cut above the rest of the competition. You're already thinking about how you're going to do the job. When you do stuff like this, answering the 30, 60, 90-day question is super simple. You're already answering it ahead of time, right? Ask for help from champions inside the company. The best hires often come through internal referrals. Build a relationship with someone on the team who will vouch for you. 1000%. I mean, we talk about building champions in sales all the time. In fact, in some of the highest tiers of tech sales, there's a common saying, you cannot sell anything if you don't have a champion. You'll hear sales managers in weekly sales meetings asking, oh, I see you put a new opportunity on the board. That's great. Who's your champion? Oh, we don't have one yet. That deal's going nowhere. Or who's your champion? We got Tim over here in accounting. We got Tina over here in operations. So have your champions. These are people that literally work for you inside their organization. They're on your team. They're pushing your agenda, right? But in turn, the things you're pushing help them. So that's why they're pushing for you. Don't apply until you've earned the conversation. Skipping the application and going straight to networking makes you stand out as intentional, not desperate. Be the person who reached out, did the homework, and earned the interview. I mean, this is, to arena students or to anyone in the arena university, this is just arena application process 101. We go through this process, we build champions, we do discovery, we practice interviews, we prepare for reaching out to the hiring managers or decision makers, and we just rinse and repeat this process over and over. And eventually, typically around a 6-week period, you're accepting job offers, right? So we're not applying, we're not smashing the careers page or applying on the careers page because that's what everyone else is doing. We need to be different. We need to stand out, okay? Closing truths. You're not starting over, you're starting ahead. But this new arena requires translation, not entitlement. If you're disciplined enough to run enough reps if you're disciplined enough to run enough reps of outreach, prep, and follow-up for a single role and repeat that process until you get a job, you'll win. I mean, isn't that crazy? Everyone wants the silver bullet, and I just gave it to you. If you do the work, you get the results. Everyone wants to know, what does it take? How do I do it? Are there guarantees? There's not guarantees, but there are high probabilities that if you do the work, you get the results. You are the solution to a business problem. Learn the problem extremely well, and then present yourself as the solution to the decision maker. It's really not complicated. It is challenging at times, but it's not complicated. It's a simple thing. Do the simple things. So let's talk about taking action. Step 1, build a list of 4 roles you want to go after. Not 5, not 3, 4. I've just found over hundreds and hundreds of veterans. 4 is kind of the sweet spot. Reach out to future peers at those companies. Ask them really good questions. The definition of a good question is anything you couldn't possibly find out online. If you could have found that question out online, whether it's ChatGPT or Google or something else, you're kind of wasting their time and yours, right? Because you could have Googled it. So ask them really good questions, things you couldn't find out online, like what is your boss looking for in a hire? Who's the last person they hired? What's the territory that's open? Why is it open? Are there any customers in that territory, or is it all greenfield, right? Ask them questions that are going to give you information that are going to offer a solution that you can propose to the hiring manager. Okay, 4, gather information that helps the hiring manager make a decision. 5, present solutions to the hiring manager. 6, write down 3 military experiences where you led, adapted, or overcame. 7, translate each into business language using the table in this deck, and also use ChatGPT. And finally, practice telling those stories in a job interview setting. Record yourself and critique it. I would encourage you to get on any free online platform where you can record yourself, whether it's a Google Meet or something else. Record yourself answering some common interview questions. And then when you go back and listen and watch, do it in 3 different ways. First, turn the screen off and just listen to yourself. You can hear your tonality, your volume, your cadence. Then mute yourself and just watch and see your body language. Are you moving your hands? Are you stiff? Are you just sitting around? Are you constantly looking up and to the left? Are you making good eye contact? Are you engaging? Are you capturing people's attention? Right? And then lastly, turn the camera on and the audio and listen and watch. And you're going to be able to coach yourself on what you need to do differently. Okay? All right, here we go. Finally, if you want to give yourself an unfair advantage, which is what we always talk about in sales, let's give ourselves an unfair advantage. How can we increase the chances that we actually win and that we actually support our customers and we actually provide the solutions they're looking for? In this case, if you want to increase your chances into getting in tech sales and making sure that you're the rookie of the year, you should consider joining the Arena University, where we're a community of veterans getting high-paying jobs in tech sales. We learn together, we practice together, and we get jobs together. So you can learn more at university.vet. I'd encourage you to go there. We have a bunch of free resources, free ebook, free mini course, which is like hours of me just, walking through a bunch of these exercises, teaching you tips and tricks, and then giving you some processes to follow on how to get a job. And then there's other resources, right? And there's other products that we offer. But I encourage you to check it out and reach out if you have any questions. All right? Have a good one.